Hello, everybody. Welcome to Maker's Bar, where we are on a journey to create 1 million leaders. I'm your host, Troy Goldenberg. Today, I'm here with Chris Ford. Chris is the founder of Wingate Capital, a real estate private equity firm that provides investors with opportunities to passively invest in institutional quality, recession-resilient real estate. I'm very excited to hear about his journey. It's very, very impressive background here. Starting even before he was 18, I'm reading here. You started your journey to get your real estate license. Wait, how old were you then? Were you 16, 17 when you started that?
I was a senior in high school, around 17, 18 when I started studying. Got it when I was 18 and jumped into residential sales, which is the only real estate opportunity I knew of at the time. Right after graduation, and been in real estate my whole career. Happy to dive in.
Yeah, I never looked back. That's an incredible amount of initiative for a 17-year-old. What made you want to, starting with 17, I guess here, what made you want to jump into that at such a young age?
Yeah, good question. So when I was 15 or 16, I actually got involved in a network marketing company that really was like my first, I don't know how legitimate, but business opportunity. The company was called VEMA. It was an acronym, VEMMA. And it still exists. I don't know if it's still a network marketing company, but that was a huge game changer for me, just getting around successful people, understand the importance of mentors, of reading books, success books and real estate and finance and entrepreneurship books that really formed that habit. And then was a part of that for a few years. That was just an amazing environment to grow and learn and get around people that had more of what I wanted in life. And then I just wanted to diversify my opportunities at the time. I remembered thinking, if this didn't work out, I always thought real estate would be a good opportunity. After reading Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 16, that really spurred my interest in real estate and why I ended up getting my license and getting into the business. And thank God I did that, because VEMA ended up getting sued and shut down. And they reopened and won the lawsuit, but it was never the same. So
wow,
that's that story.
Yeah, it's an interesting start. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was like, obviously 20. It's definitely it's a mindset shifter of how you look at finances for sure. I was an accounting grad in undergrad and grad school, so even with that background, I was like, oh wow, something did click in my head reading that book. So it makes sense that kind of sparked your journey. Was there any mentors on that notes? That's where we are at the moment. So are there any mentors that played a huge role when you were younger, or even now as you continue your career?
Many throughout my life. Starting around that time is when I first met the first handful of mentors, and I'm always looking for more. I have a few core mentors that continue to speak into my life in several areas. A big saying from those years were only take advice from people that have what you want. And I think that's still valuable advice. Not that you can't take advice from people that don't have what you want, but particularly in a certain area of life. If someone has the business or finances that I want, then I'm more interested and more willing to take their financial advice. But that doesn't mean if they don't, if they're trying to give me marriage advice and they don't have the best, a marriage that I look up to, doesn't mean I should take that advice, right? So it's kind of segmented by 8 areas of life we can get into of how I think about goal setting and my life and how I want to think about designing a life holistically, that is, and whole life success. But mentors, yeah, early on, there was a retired pro basketball player named Jim Brogan that was in the network marketing business. Him and his wife CJ were really impactful. When I was 18 or 19, a little bit later, there was basically a very successful venture capitalist, and now he's a local real estate developer named Todd Weinberg, who's like a second father to me. And I ended up reaching out to him on LinkedIn cold, and that led to a coffee meeting and led to an amazing relationship and friendship and mentorship over the past 6, 7, 8 years. There's been many, but those are 2 big ones. I have other spiritual mentors that speak into my life spiritually. I have, I guess, a fitness mentor when I was getting big into Ironman, after school, after college, living in San Francisco. So yeah, I have different, mentors for different areas of life. And it's essentially crucial. It's the number one advice I would tell my younger self, which I'm glad I did. And because other wiser, smarter, more successful people told me that when I was young. and it's just a game changer. And then I guess in real estate too, I have a part. I'll get into everything I do in real estate, Wingate being one of those things, but I have like partners, business partners, and mentors there on like just the business real estate side of things, and the different opportunities I pursue too that just help me, shorten the learning curve.
No, it's very interesting. So I want to get into Wingate and that whole thing, but before that, you mentioned the 8 segments of life. Could you expand on that for real quick?
Yeah, sure. So when I was young growing up, I'm the youngest of 4. My parents are small business owners, entrepreneurs. My dad bought a business in his 20s called Decal Applicators that was just kind of blue collar, putting decals on buses, planes, trucks. And he still owns and operates that business with my mom. They're happily married, thank God. And that gave me the entrepreneurial bug. But I know I didn't want to take over that business. And again, that's why I did other business ventures and network marketing. And I've been working my whole, since I was 8 years old, pretty much my whole life. But to answer your question around what I call whole life success, it's, one of the big, not direct mentors, but mentors at a distance that I look up to is a guy, most of your listeners probably have heard of Tony Robbins. I'm a huge fan. Some of the books that I read early on were by Jim Rohn. Darren Hardy was another name besides Robert Kiyosaki. But Tony Robbins, I was fortunate enough to prioritize going to some in-person events. I've been to 2 UPWs in Los Angeles, about 4 or 5 years apart, and they were both amazing and transformational. But Tony, it's not my original idea, but growing up, I had initially looked at success as like, oh, he's got the nice car, the superficial stuff, the hot wife, the big house, the fancy watch, like, oh, he's successful. And then growing up in my late teens, I met enough people that had all those things, but were kind of like empty, either soulless or just empty in other areas of life, and just didn't have what I realized what true success meant to me, which was success in all areas of life, just a holistic, whole life success, what I call it. So I think of it as like a pizza of 8 slices. A few of those are like my relationship bucket, which is like friends and family, intimate relationship, mentors, business partners, etc. All the relationships in my life is maybe one slice. Career and mission is another slice. Contribution, giving and back is another slice. Money and finances, lifestyle. So I've written a little blog article on it. I took most of it from like a Tony Robbins concept. So he's probably, give the credit where it's due there. But it's just a good way to think about life in each area, because I'm big into like models and structure and goal setting and planning and lists and all sorts of stuff. So I have a whole like goal setting process that took me 48 hours. It's like 20 pages. And that's also related to like this whole goal setting process related to the different areas of life.
Very cool. I'd love to hear about that too. Actually, I don't have. We can come back to it because I want to get into Wingate and your real estate journey here. Sure. But that's a very cool process. I'd love to hear about the goal setting process later. But yes, let's get into Wingate. That was the company that you founded. Was this your first company you found, and what led you to making that jump?
Yeah, so it was a long journey. Was it the first company? I mean, most of what I've done, a lot of what I've done in my career has been like entrepreneurial. I wouldn't consider it like a traditional entrepreneur that's coming up with their own brand new, relatively unique product or service. I am less risk averse, so that's why I didn't go down like the tech route, trying to start my own tech company, which is way harder and more complicated. I've chosen like network marketing already has the product and service created. You just have to do sales and marketing essentially. Real estate sales initially was, again, the product is the real estate, sales is your service, and you're just focused on sales and marketing. It's simpler entrepreneurial business models to kind of de-risk it. So I've done a lot of those in my life. Wingate's essentially an extension of that. It's a very high leverage, amazing business model. And it took me a long time to get there. So in college, basically backing up a little bit to give more context. Yeah. When I got into residential sales at 18, I made nothing my first year, just bang cold calls while going to community college at TVC in San Ramon here in the East Bay of San Francisco East Bay, where I live. Made nothing my first year, living at home in community college. Second year, I moved brokerages, found a mentor, a guy named Joe Frisano, who was amazing. He's still a friend of mine. We don't work together anymore, but he's great. He was a top broker, met him randomly and ended up working together. He helped me convert a lot of those cold call leads. I ended up selling $10 million worth of real estate in my sophomore year at community college. That paid, made me about six figures at 19, living at home. I thought this is amazing business. This paid for the next 2 years of college when I transferred to Berkeley. I got into Haas School of Business undergrad and studied there for 2 years and loved it for the most part. It was an amazing program. And at that point, I learned about all the amazing opportunities in commercial real estate. So did a lot of information interviews, coffee chats, looking for more mentors and trying to better understand what opportunities aligned with my goals. From reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I always knew I wanted to be more of like the person buying the multi-million-dollar homes, or better yet, commercial assets. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was all about investments and getting on the B&I side, business owner and investor side of the matrix, than employee and self-employed individual, right? So I learned about the opportunities and I thought I wanted to be a big owner operator at the time. So I went to go work for one in San Francisco called Mosser Capital, Mosser. They're still around and exist and are growing. And I actually still do some consulting with them. But was there for about 3 years, junior year, senior year, 2 years full-time after school, graduated in 2018 and was doing basically finance for them. It was way different than sales, way more challenging for me. And I would objectively say I wasn't the best analyst, but I grinded it out and learned a lot and enjoyed my time there for the most part. So focused on acquisitions and asset management, and learned intro to real estate finance there. So in early 2021, I left because COVID really affected their business model. They were focused on rent-controlled real estate in San Francisco, Oakland, and Los Angeles. And as you know, a lot of people were fleeing San Francisco, probably still are, from COVID. And so their business model got really hurt. I knew I wanted to do real estate entrepreneurially. So I either was going to go work for another private equity firm or get out of the corporate structure, corporate America that I didn't love, and do something entrepreneurially. So and that was kind of the origins of what I'm doing now. I know this is kind of a long story long, but to make it shorter, I now focus on Wingate, which I relaunched and repivoted early going into 2023, which I can dive deep into. I also still focus on luxury residential sales for active income on a flexible schedule. I basically left the corporate world, got back into luxury sales, rode the market up in 2021. And then, a lot of things fell off a cliff in early 2022, but I'm still equally excited with that business. And it's very synergistic to what I do at Wingate. I can explain if you're curious. And so, what I do now is maybe 40-50% of my time Wingate, which I can dive into, 30-40-50% of my time Angle & Volkers, brokerage. We work with a lot of investors and single family homeowners that are all, our average transaction size there is about 3 million in the East Bay corridor. And I have a partner in his 50s who's another mentor of mine named Tasso, who's a longtime local investor and developer. And then, like I said, I still do some consulting for Mosser Capital on the side. So that is at a high level how I ended up kind of in my entrepreneurial path in real estate now. But it took me a long time to figure out what are my skills, what do I like doing, why did I get into real estate, and all those things, how they shaped the opportunities I'm pursuing now that I couldn't be more excited about.
That's a great path. It's a lot of experience too. So it sounds like you were able to combine that analyst experience and that sales experience to get to Wingate. That's kind of what led you there.
Yep.
So at Wingate, what does the company focus on, or what are you focusing on? I know as a founder, you have your hands in everything, but what are you kind of focusing on day to day, week to week, even month to month?
Yep. Good question. So what I realized, there's many big high level takeaways from all my experience in sales and private equity, and now back into kind of both. One of those things was that in the real estate world, and probably the traditional private equity world as well, your highest and best use of time is one of two activities, or both activities. These, finding good deals or raising money. If you look at most CEOs, partners out there, they're spending probably at least half or most of their time doing one or both of those things, finding great deals or building a team to find great deals, whether it's real estate or healthcare businesses or venture capital opportunities or whatever that is, finding great deals and then raising money for those deals, because the bigger deals you want to do, the more, the capital's got to come from somewhere. And in private equity venture capital, usually that's raised from either individuals or institutions. So I realized those things after a few years, and I thought I was always going to build a multifamily investment platform myself, being an owner operator. I liked multifamily. It was easy to understand. It was scalable. And from some personal life events that I probably won't go into on this call, but I decided to pivot that dream. I basically realized I didn't have many competitive advantages trying to compete with the hundreds, if not thousands, of multifamily investors and syndicators all over the country. Being in the Bay Area, not wanting to invest in my backyard. Long story short, me and a friend did a fourplex deal as our first deal locally in Oakland, California. We still own and operate that and raised a little bit of money on that. But it was the biggest learning lesson to not do more investments in California, and especially in rent controlled, but also just highly tenant friendly locations that can really screw landlords. And it's just the whole long story there, but has not been a fruitful investment. We'll still make money on it. We'll still do fine, but it's a low leverage, like we're losing money on our time, practically just self-managing it. So, but that being said, with Wingate, so I made a pivot. My point with sharing all this was that I made a pivot. I'm like, instead of me having to fly all over the country and compete with operators, why don't I just partner with them? There were some individuals in my life that helped me realize that there was a whole business model around just focusing on partnering with operators, helping them raise capital, and as either a co-GP or a fund of funds model, and that there's, this is one of the highest and best business models and skill sets that you can truly learn, and have. So, and it really struck all the chords of like what I like best about real estate, which was, I love that it's a people business. Yes, I love the sticks and bricks side of it, but I don't like the deep, detailed operations and getting my hands super dirty personally there. I like the relationship building, the wealth building aspects of real estate, the tax benefits, etc. So at Wingate, I focus on partnering with what I call top tier emerging operators all over the country, but particularly in markets that are business friendly, tax friendly, and landlord friendly, so that you can execute your business plan, whatever that looks like. I like value add business plans, which I don't know how many of your listeners are real estate, investors or prospective real estate investors, but there's a value add business plan basically means you're buying an asset with a plan to spend X amount of money to increase income and or decrease expenses to force appreciation. It's one of the beautiful things about commercial real estate. It's based on it's valued based on net operating income, unlike residential, which is all sales comparable approach versus the income approach, which are appraisal terms. But yeah, value add business plans in growing markets that with recession resistant product types is what I personally like. And recession resistant product types are like multifamily, mobile home parks, self-storage. I'm looking into different like industrial storage facilities as well. And then like I'm interested in senior housing as well. These are all product types that can have not only shown historically to crush it through the ups and the downs, but where I feel that you can consistently, if you're investing with good operators that have a lot of competitive advantages, that are typically vertically integrated, if you know what that means, just means they have all property management, construction management in-house, so they can control more steps of the process. And then, basically with this philosophy at Wingate, if that was clear, I don't know if it was, I can kind of reframe it if it wasn't clear. I think you can get some of the highest risk adjusted returns in real estate, let alone the whole investment landscape, 15 to 20% projected returns. Sometimes they're higher. A lot of the times they're higher, especially in a good market. But this is kind of like your base case, 15 to 20% returns. These are typically, I guess I'll stop there. I could just keep rambling and tell you more about what I do. But that's kind of what I focus on. Partnering with great operators. So I'm always talking to, 1 to 5 new operators a month, and then helping them pitch their deals, raise capital that I always invest alongside my investor network, my investor club that's always growing. I talk to probably 10 to 50 investors or potential passive investors a month as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Also, the rambling, that's what the podcast platform is for. So
Okay,
if I
perfect.
have like a question, if I'm lost on anything, which maybe I should stop you a bit more, but I have two of my older brothers. I'm also youngest of four. They're in real estate.
Awesome.
One's in commercial brokerage and development. The other's in land real estate, and it's a it's a similar business model actually. As you were going into that, where you kind of have your investor club, and then he doesn't have a recurring partner on the buy side when he's buying, but he's constantly making contact with new people to see if he can get the land at a fair price. And the real estate, the ROI is kind of that similar range. It can be 15 to 50%.
Yeah.
It's definitely the real estate game. It does intrigue me in a sense of, um, relatively speaking, it is simple. It's a very like, hey, here are the numbers. Here's what you can do. Here's what your return should look like. So it's more simple than someone like me. I'm a big. I have a high risk tolerance. I love taking big shots, and that kind of really attracts me to the tech world. And we talk to a lot of VCs and tech people here
Yeah.
on Maker's Bar, but it's always when you're discussing this, or when someone like you who's in this world discusses this stuff, it's always like, oh wow, what a fantastic business model. Truly, like, um, if you're someone like yourself who's like, hey, I know my skill set. I'm a relationship builder. I'm a hard worker. I can go out and make contact with all these different people and uh, kind of manage the network. Make sure that this person talks to the person they need to talk to. X talks to Z, and all these different things. It makes sense. It makes sense. So I hear these conversations all the time in my personal life, and if I have any questions, I'll stop you. My concern is maybe I know it's something you're talking about, like a vertical integration or something that maybe some of the listeners wouldn't.
Sure.
But no, it's all very intriguing to me, truly. As far as building your company has gone, and you said you started this in 2023, correct?
Yeah, going in at the end of 2022, made the pivot from active to passive focused instead of me being the owner operator partnering with them. Yeah, and then
Very cool.
made the pivot in basically the hardest deal making capital raising year in probably some say the last 10 to 12 years, some say the last 30 years, with transaction volume being 60, 70+% down, depending on the sector you're focused on.
So that's actually kind of transitions into my question
Yeah.
of what was some of the most challenging parts of the business that you faced so far. And we'll start there. I'll kind of pivot into some of the most rewarding parts and satisfying parts.
Sure. I think just finding good deals in a very challenging, basically, for those that aren't familiar with the market at a high level in 2023, we're filming this in February 2024, as rates are starting to come down, as hopefully sellers of assets are starting to realize that their investments aren't worth what they thought they were worth. And some are, I think we might see a good amount of continued distress depending on what we're looking at, the product type we're looking at in 2024. I can go into as well, right? I might see opportunity, but 2023, the biggest challenge was finding good deal flow. My partners are constantly, they all have established acquisitions teams with one or more people on them that are constantly networking with brokers, looking for the best deals, underwriting deal flow as well. And on average, we'll probably underwrite 100 deals for one that we get under contract at a price that makes sense, at terms that make sense, that we're then bringing to our investor network as a legit opportunity that's under contract that you can invest in. So out of a few hundred opportunities that were underwrote last year, there was only 2 that really made sense and that came together. So that was probably the biggest challenge. I think this year I'm looking to do between 5 and 10 deals. Raising a few $1 million for each is the goal, and investing a good chunk of my own change in every one of those deals to be aligned with my investors, my passive investors, and also my co-GP. So yeah, does that answer the question? I guess deal flow is the most challenging thing last year, and then I guess I also can answer, if you're curious, like the most challenging thing general, and like at a higher level in my business and what I focus on. So because I think I answered this for someone else the other day, which was, it's basically like I'm leveraging the track record of my partners massively, right? Like, yeah, I've been a part of 300. I helped participate in $340 million worth of private real estate deals, all multifamily at Mosser, and I was doing acquisitions and asset management for all that. That was a great experience. I've done my own active deal locally here in Oakland, but like with these larger 300, 300 plus unit properties, I'm completely leaning on the detailed expertise of my partners. I know enough to vet their underwriting, to vet their assumptions, and feel comfortable enough for me to fully understand the deal and also invest in it myself. But like anything, it's like, I mean, Troy, I don't know how old you are. You're pretty young as well, but like building trust in this is what's essentially high ticket sales and investments, in the whole commercial investment world. It's like people can put 50 grand, 100 grand, 250 grand in a million different places. And it's like, why is commercial real estate and a specific commercial real estate deal that I'm investing in and marketing to my network, why is that a better place to put it in than in the stock market, than in an angel investment or some other opportunity that you have as an opportunity cost? I feel that I can answer that question pretty well, but that's always going to be something that we have to continue to educate. And that's kind of the opportunity, is that there's like something like 13 or so, 13, 12, 13, 14 million accredited investors in the US that I think, if I was to guess, 90+% of don't understand the benefits of private, or don't understand the benefits, or don't have access to the amazing private real estate deals to invest in. And they're getting inferior returns with their traditional wealth manager that I think is largely a broken business model that I can talk about too. But another long answer.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Again, the podcast platform is what I love about it. We're here for the long answers. Kind of going back to like, you made 2 deals out of sourcing 100, which I'm sure is exhausting. I'm sure it's a type of adversity, and you run into all these different types of adversity through your journey. And when those moments come, like adversity and doubt comes, how do you deal with it? Do you have a process that you deal with, or is it really just keep grinding?
So a few things. One is that the business model I've decided to focus on is I'm not the one that's personally underwriting and searching for all those deals. I'm sure it's extremely frustrating, and my operating partners could be the ones to better answer that question for you, but they're not on this call. So for me, on the other half of my life is like finding and putting together luxury residential deals in my backyard. And dude, I had like over 6 figures of commissions in 2023 fall through, listings that we took or buyers we had in contract that fell apart for some reason. And I'm sure a lot of those things happen in the commercial world as well for my operating partners. For me, I just get to, and I've chosen just to be able to be looped into the process. For the most part, part of the consulting I do is finding deals and raising money as well, and adding more value than just raising money. And because that's, I always want to do that where I can and have expertise to do that. But no, I've chosen it with Wingate just to be, not to have to go through all of the deal finding process. I get to see tens of deals in my inbox a month, and I get to kind of basically hand select the operators and the deals that I want to work on myself. So that's actually not really an issue at this point. I'm always open to talking to more operators that have questions for me or that I might be interested in partnering with at some point down the road. But I largely have the partners I want to work with determined for the most part, and that I want to work with for the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. It's like any business, good business. It's a long relationships you can benefit and profit from. So yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah. So actually on that note, of the 10, 20, 30 year relationships, what is your long-term vision for the company? How do you expect it to grow and be different 20 years from now?
Yeah, good question. I'm definitely thinking about those things. So, I mean, there's a kind of a range of what Wingate could become, and I'm thinking about, I guess we'll see, it could become bigger than what I even imagined it to. But like on the realistic, smaller side of things, that there's guys a few years ahead of me, call it 3 to 7, 8 years ahead of me, that are raising 50 to 100 million a year, all from accredited investors, high net worth individuals, to invest in passive opportunities. And that would be a great, that's what I'm headed towards now. In the next 5 to 10 years, I'd like to be raising 50 to 100 million, investing in, 10, 20, 30 deals a year. Eventually, as I continue to build my track record and investor network, to diversify out of just my, recession resistant product types. I'm interested in other things. I eventually could raise and partner with and invest in, prop tech opportunities, which there's a bunch of opportunity in the venture world. Prop tech stands for property technology, which is like any technology having to do with the built environment. There's some big VC firms you could look into. I have a buddy that works at Navitas. Is a big fund out of Los Angeles, or like Fifth Wall, I think, is also out of LA. But anyway, my point is, who knows? I could raise for all sorts of stuff and partner on all sorts of stuff in the future. Once you have a legit established platform with hundreds or thousands of investors that know, like, and trust you, which is what I'm working towards and building now. There's other firms that, like a Kipling Capital in Marin County, which is close to me, that have raised like $2 billion all from high net worth individuals without any, cold calls, cold emails, all referrals, which is like mind blowing. But the partners started it when they were in their 50s. They're in their 70s now. And, I don't have the luxury of already having this massive established network, or not being a part of country clubs to just focused on, I have to get a lot more creative with my outreach and how I'm building relationships with accredited and high net worth investors all across the country. And I can talk about some of that
I'd love to hear about that, actually, because I think that's a challenge that, whether you're in real estate or VC trying to raise money, or whether you're just any young person trying to build out that network, is definitely a challenge. So I'd love to hear about some of those strategies that you're using.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'd say is I've been super intentional with building my network since I was 18, getting into business, because I knew that was cheesy saying is your network is your net worth. I don't know how true that is, but I'm sure there's some sort of correlation. And that was kind of burned into my mind from the network marketing days. And so, I've always been very intentional. I guess every year I get more intentional and more focused on where I want to grow my network. Obviously, with the pivot with Wingate, it's now like putting lighter fluid on my network, because the steps I'm taking now are just every week I'm talking to 10, 20 plus new people that I might be able to work with in the future in some way or not. But here's another big thing too, big caveat or big asterisk, I would say, when it comes to networking. And I always say this and firmly believe this. It's like, Troy, if you and I don't know each other, nothing can happen like between us or for us, right? Like, you and me being willing to jump on a call and me jump on this podcast is the first step. Usually an intro call, 15, 30 minutes is what I say when I'm, on an intro call. It's like us being willing to jump on, listen to each other's stories, see what we're passionate about, what we're working on, where we are now, where we want to go. It's like, that's our responsibility, reaching out and being willing to jump on. Who knows, like, what I believe God is going to, whatever you believe, the universe, I say God is going to lead that relationship in the future. I had no idea that I was going to be on your podcast, but I wanted to, it's like the things I'm doing is reaching out to people, telling my story. Being an effective sales and marketer is really, it's usually not the best product that wins. It's usually the best marketer that wins. I always say McDonald's doesn't have the best hamburger, but why do they sell the most hamburgers? It's because they're just the most well-known. They just tell their story again and again and again to the masses all over the world. And I want to have the best product or some of the best products and be the best marketer.
Of course.
But my point is, some of the things I'm doing, I mean, it all depends on your business model. It depends on your business, your business model, who you want to connect with and why, right? These are much more important questions. For me, I've answered a lot of those questions with Wingate and the purpose of why I'm reaching out and, who I want to connect with. That is not going to apply to 99% of your listeners, right? Most of your listeners wouldn't have an interest, and there's no benefit for them to reaching out to 10, 20, 30, 50, sending tens of thousands of emails to book 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 calls a month. Like, that just wouldn't have any value for most of your listeners. But for me in Wingate and what I do, it's immensely valuable. It's kind of the whole business, a lot, like at least half the business. So I get really creative with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. and different data pulling services that allow me to pull data from LinkedIn Sales Navigator lists to then build targeted lists to reach out at scale. I have a great CRM. I actually have 4 accounts with the same CRM that
Oh, wow.
that help me organize, reach out, follow up, and my calendar and 5 or 6 different email addresses that I have. So I can talk about any of that that's interesting. But yeah, for your listener thinking about their network, it's like I don't even know where to start. It's just very important. You have to get clear on who you want to connect with and why, and then you have to figure out how you can get their attention and provide value first. It's like there's not, with all the mentors I've had in my life, it's not like I just ask them to be my mentor. It's like I'm trying to provide value. I'm trying to show up with a positive attitude and a smile. And when you don't have a lot to give, you can still give a positive attitude, a willingness to learn and implement what they're teaching you. And then when you do have a product or service that you're trying to sell and pitch, like figuring out who your target customer is or target customers, and then figuring out how they spend their time, where they shop, where they're, what social media platforms they're on, and how to get in front of them with a compelling message to then book a call and move them down your sales cycle, whatever that looks like.
Interesting. Yeah, no, it's a very, I love learning about these processes. My original job out of school, actually, just a bit about me, I got my CPA out of school, and I quickly learned I did not want to do audit or tax work. And I went to a big accounting firm, and I was doing consulting, so ERP consulting, which is basically, it was all business processes. That was basically what I was doing. I was basically 8 hours a day talking to people. It's like, hey, what does your business process look like, A to Z, record to report, acquire to retire, whatever it may be. And it definitely sparked something of my interest of like, oh, this is how every business, this is how it works. No matter what you're doing, there's a pattern that you follow that, you want to refine. Like you said, you want to create the best product possible, which includes creating the best back end system possible. So I'm always interested in hearing that. Actually, and I'm curious, what CRM do you use? Because obviously it's a huge deal. I've worked in sales in my life, and CRMs are extremely important things, but I have never heard of somebody having 4 different accounts. So that's an interesting setup to have.
Yeah. I kind of fell into a fantastic CRM, which was built actually just for the residential sales business specifically, but it's such a user-friendly and cheap and great CRM that I've used it for basically everything I work on. It's called Follow Up Boss, and it was just actually acquired by Zillow Group for like 500 million or something. So they had a good exit there. But Follow Up Boss, it's fantastic. It's cheap. It's like $60 or $70 a user a month, and you get a discount for obviously an annual membership or whatever. I have an account for Wingate. I have an account for Angle and Volkers that's separate, and then for my consulting, I have accounts for that client for what we do for them. And then I have a VA that understands Follow Up Boss well, based in the Philippines, that works with me across all those opportunities. That makes it all very seamless, and it's like talking the same language. Versus if I had one HubSpot CRM, one Salesforce CRM that are way more expensive and way more complicated than Follow Up Boss and harder to use in my opinion. Follow Up Boss does everything I need it to, and for my businesses that are relatively simple, and it's fantastic and it's cheap, so it works for me for now.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, we'll move into basically the ending of this conversation. I've enjoyed it a lot. I actually would love to keep talking to you and learn more about this real estate world, and tell you more about actually my brothers who are deep inside this as well. But kind of my final questions as an entrepreneur, what are some of the most critical skills that you believe at least an entrepreneur should have in order to succeed, or should it develop in order to succeed?
I think the most important, probably almost with anything, unless you're a highly technical, risk-taking founder in the tech world that needs technical skills to build a product that's unique in the marketplace, I would say the most important is just sales and marketing. You could start any sort of business. I go again back to the McDonald's example. It's like you could have the best burger in the entire world, but if no one knows about it, you're not going to sell any burgers. You could have probably one of the crappiest burgers in the world, but if you are the best sales and marketer, you're going to build a McDonald's, basically, right? So I think sales and marketing is a lot more, and sales marketing is a lot more important potential in building a robust business with a moat than the actual product itself. I don't want that to take away from, like, you also need to have a great product. Like, that's the other side of the coin. That's very important, because ultimately the best form of sales and marketing is referrals from your customers, right? I want to get to the point where I'm not having to do cold outreach. I just want to my calendar's booked with referrals. Like, that's, zero cost of, Alex Ramosi talks about, like, zero cost of replication is just the best. That's the best business model. That's how Apple and, all these other big companies are doing it. Because they have
absolutely
such good products that you don't even, they still do sales and marketing, but they don't need to do as much or spend as much because it's such a good product that it's just being referred. That's the most important. Most of the businesses I focus on, the two core businesses, luxury residential sales and Wingate Capital, are all the core functions that I use, or that I focus on, are sales and marketing. Then there's a bunch of obviously soft skills too, like being a good writer. A lot of what I do is, in a way, like, I didn't study copywriting, but writing good emails is, like, the number of times I have a response where it's like, I normally don't respond to these types of cold emails, but this was very personal and I'd love to jump on a call. Like, I get a handful of those, 5 to 10 of those, like, a week. And it's because I don't know, I think I'm a decent writer. That was always a strength of mine.
Interesting. That second part is definitely interesting. Do you have any books or courses that taught you more about copywriting, or do you just a natural strength that you developed?
I've always been into psychology, and I think I'm pretty good at, like, being objective. If I was reading something that was sent to me, being like, would I respond to this? Would I find this interesting? Are the call to actions or the ask, is it soft? Is it too hard? Is it too soft? I've had a lot of success with, I write a lot of email templates, and I do a lot of testing of cold email, which is one of my main effective ways to generate leads and build my businesses. I'd like to do more in social media marketing this year in general. But I built a lot of what I have now via cold email. And so I've gotten decent at that. But advice, I don't know. I've never taken a real copywriting class, but I probably will at some point. And
I was just curious. Yeah, no, it's not an answer that I'll hear often, but I think it's a great one. So I was just curious. And finally, what advice, outside of getting great at sales and marketing, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to start their own company?
It probably entirely depends on what type of company they want to start. I would encourage people, unless you're, again, more willing to take risk, to start a business that is not super complicated, that already has an established product service that you can just focus on a part of the business, like not having to create your own brand new product or service and then market it and try to build a marketplace for it. Like, lower hanging fruit businesses is probably part of the advice I'd say. The other part is, like, why do you want to start it? Like, a lot of business owners end up building something and grinding many years of their life to realize that they built the wrong business, or they're now a slave to their business because they didn't build it correctly, or it just doesn't serve their needs, or they're no longer interested in it, or they're not, like, they don't have competitive advantages and they're building the wrong business for their skill set and their interests. I think it's very important, and I don't think people think about enough, like, why they're starting the specific business they are. I thought a lot about, like, the Wingate pivot and what that can look like in 10, 20, 30 years, and if that would satisfy, like, and fulfill me leveraging my skills and talents. And, like, and I feel there's this Japanese concept called ikigai. If you're familiar with it.
I am familiar, but if you want to explain for anyone who might not be.
Sure. It's just the Japanese don't have a concept for retirement. From what I've heard, maybe that's completely false, but I've heard they don't have a word for retirement in their language, and, like, they think it's insane for the West to like work their whole life grinding in something that they don't love doing, to then retire at some point and basically wither away. If you look at the stats after retirement, they're pretty dismal, with people getting sick or dying, like, not long after, in a lot of cases, just in general. So the Japanese work, whether work, quote unquote, like gardening, exercising, hanging out with friends, whatever, like in their 80s and 90s, their whole life, that helps extend life and keep them sharp. But for me, like I never want to retire traditionally. I also wake up and don't feel like I work every day. Whereas in the corporate world, I felt like I was kind of suffocating, frankly. So choose something that doesn't feel like work. It's not like you have to love it, but the business shouldn't, a lot of the business, in my opinion, shouldn't feel like it's a grind, like something you don't want to be doing. Like I focused on the part of the business that I love, that I'm good at. And as it relates to Ikigai, it's like 4 questions. And the intersection of these four questions is your Ikigai. It's like what you're meant to be doing. It's like the reason for being, I think, is what it translates to. The questions: what am I good at? What do I like doing? What does the world need? And what can I be paid, ideally paid well for? And so with Wingate, I'm living like the center of those 4 questions for me. It's not going to be the same for most people. So, but answering those questions before you start the business is going to help you not waste a lot of time. Choose the right business and be happy while you're building it. Because one big thing that was very important to me, it's like I'm building Wingate and all the things that I do, not just to, bigger is not necessarily better. It's like I don't know. I learned that a long time ago, that bigger is not better. I don't need more units necessarily. I don't need always more investors. It's like, when is enough? It's a whole other conversation. But I know that I really want location freedom, time freedom, and financial freedom. And in many businesses, you can't get all 3. Wingate is a unique business where you can get all 3. And it's a high leverage business where you can get all 3. And it's not going to be that hard over the next 5 to 10 years for me to, I think, achieve that. With residential sales, no matter, even if I'm making millions of dollars a year, I'll never be location free, and I'll never have true time freedom, because it's a client-based business where I have to show up and answer my clients when they want, right? Like look at Ryan Serhant. He doesn't have time freedom. He probably doesn't want time freedom, but my point is that's what I want. I'd like to be able to work from anywhere, and that's why I started Wingate and why I'm passionate. But that was a long answer. So there you go.
No. Again, that's why I love this platform. This is something I love to do. Hopefully one day I can make a lot of money doing this, talking to awesome people like yourself. And I can feel your energy, and I can feel that you're living your Ikigai. It's easy to tell. And then again, one of the reasons I love doing this is I love just feeding off that energy and feeding off that passion and learning. Yeah. And I've learned a lot in these 45 minutes here. And I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you making the time. I look forward to following the journey, truly. And hopefully being able to tell you a bit about my brothers who, especially the land real estate guys, a very similar business model. I think you'd be interested in hearing about each other. So anywho, Chris, I really appreciate the time again. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And hopefully I'll follow along this journey as Wingate gets bigger and better and continues to fill you with all that energy and passion over the next 20, 30 years here.
Thank you. I have, if people want to stay in touch, if you're going to ask or not, WingateCapital.com is one of my main websites. You can follow me on Instagram if you want more personal content, Chris L. Ford, or you can reach out, Chris at Wingate Capital. LinkedIn is a great platform to stay connected to as well. Christopher Lloyd Ford. I don't know. Just look me up, Chris Ford, Wingate Capital. I would love to stay in touch. I have a monthly newsletter that I provide value to, and that's where a lot of the deal flow comes through for the investor club. So reach out, stay connected. I'd love to keep the conversation going.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And again, thanks for making the time. And until next time, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you, Troy.